Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're gonna go over all the books that have single-handedly changed the way I think, feel, heal, all things about self-love, finding confidence, healing, forgiveness. So if that is in your range, then you're going to love today's episode. Each book, I'm gonna go over every single lesson or the main thing that just really helped me. Hopefully maybe they can inspire you or maybe guide you on your own healing self-confidence journey. Without further ado, let's dive in. I'm going to be going over the 10 books. As you can see here, these are my absolute favorites that have helped me in so many different ways. Starting right away, the first book is this one right here. You Were Not Born to Suffer. I actually just finished this book. If you are somebody who has been through a lot of trauma, a lot of hardship in your life, this is the book to read. I never thought that I could read a book that would basically take my traumas and turn it into a positive thing. Basically a book in the belief that suffering is a natural part of life. Key takeaway is that we have the power to change our relationship with pain and hardship. One of the most powerful examples in this book is the concept of shifting our focus from suffering to growth. And one of the most key component parts in this book that especially resonated with me was how to be yourself. As someone who has moved around more times than I can really think about in this moment, it was really hard for me to be myself because I always felt like I had to conform or I had to be a certain way in order to make or keep friends. I've had like a range of friend groups, whether it stemmed from like the emo side to trying to be the preppy girls to trying to be the materialistic, and down the line of all my teenage years, it's now caught up to me that when it came to making content, everybody just said be authentic, be yourself, but I would always wonder, what does that actually look like? So this is actually one of my favorite parts in the book. One might assume that it's easy and natural to be ourselves, yet so many of us have become disconnected from our true self, that the opposite now seems to be the case. It seems easier to be something for someone else or to please others or to fit in rather than having to face the whole fear of being judged. It really just comes down to all those things is everything that you're doing actually because it's something that you want to do and that it's true and authentic to yourself? Or are you doing it because you don't want to displease somebody else? The greatest example is probably like your parents, whether you fear saying no to them because you feel like you owe them a lot, or maybe they've done a lot for you in your life. Holds true. Like my parents have done a lot for me. I'm sitting here debt free. They paid for my education. So sometimes I find myself really struggling to always say no to them, or if I need to stand up to them in some way. It's really hard because I feel like I owe them. The last thing that I want to do is ever have them walk around thinking that they're disappointed. Another thing that this book does a really good job at is talking about really deep traumas, like whether you've been essayed or child abuse, whatever those really horrible cases are. It basically talks about how, yes, they were bad. Yes, you should feel how you feel about it, but at some point it's not okay to keep playing victim to it. They are basically life lessons that come out of every single trauma, that come out of every single thing that you go through. The book really goes into detail about how you can stop playing victim to that. My other favorite things in this book is that after every chapter it goes over self-reflection questions that you then can either journal. On top of that, it has key affirmations for each chapter. So for example, let me read you some good ones. One that goes over needing to know how to be yourself and self-identity. A good practical question that would be really good for journaling is, when and with whom in your life right now do you struggle to express what you think, feel, want, and need? Then a really good key affirmation, especially if you're somebody who has a fear of saying no to your parents or displeasing them, good key affirmation is, I do not need to fear punishment. I'm not a child anymore. Another good affirmation is, what I feel, need, and want matters. This book is literally like perfect for someone who is going through any type of healing or suffering and just needs to move on in some way without having to feel like you're gaslighting yourself. The next book is Atomic Habits. This is actually a really popular book and I wouldn't be surprised if you actually heard about it. It's all about the power of small and consistent changes and how those tiny, small, consistent changes lead to the results over time that you have been striving for. One of my favorite examples in this book is known as the 2-minute rule, which basically states that if a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. One of those small small things that can actually really help if you struggle with self-discipline, needing to do the things that you say you're gonna do, but you don't actually do. The way how I like it is that it broke it down into little sections that when you do simple, sustainable habits, eventually lead to the results, and then the results really end up leading to the motivation, and then the motivation just kind of goes in line with discipline, keeps the cycle going. So one of my favorite things about this book is this section right here. Behind every system of action is a system of beliefs. It goes into a whole section, so I'm not actually going to read into that. You definitely should get this book. When it comes to the whole cycle of containing sustainable habits that lead to the results that eventually lead to the motivation and discipline, you can think of it like goals are about the results you want to achieve, but the systems, aka the habits that you need to get you there, are the processes that lead to those results. I use a lot of the frameworks in this book to actually help coach my clients, because at the end of the day, they always say that they struggle with discipline and motivation, but the key thing is just building sustainable habits first. Now, this next book is really good if you have ever been betrayed, if you are going through a healing process, or if you are just somebody who has been through a lot and you are struggling to actually heal. It's no surprise that the book is actually called When You're Ready, This Is How You Heal. This book literally goes into detail about how it's okay if you're not put together right away, because healing is not a linear process. A natural habit that I've been doing is I don't ever really take the time to sit and process my emotions. I like to just think of it as like, okay, that's how it made me feel in the moment. We're done. The next thing. In reality, we don't actually know how much those really impact us. So this book goes into so much detail of letting yourself feel it and the different ways to actually come through it. And because that healing is not a linear process, it's okay if things that happened 20 years ago suddenly arise in your mind. You're dealing with grief about somebody who had passed away. Completely normal that when those feelings arise up, it's natural to have to re-go through the entire process. And then after the whole entire healing, there's a whole chapter where it goes over when you're ready, this is how you take your power back. If somebody had hurt you, betrayed you, it actually teaches you the steps of how to now overcome those. Okay, this next book is going to be for you if you ever find yourself self-sabotaging whenever things get good in your life, or whenever it comes to growing out of certain situations or things, you find yourself reverting back. So that is literally everything that goes over The Mountain Is You. It goes over all the reasons of why we do it, how it actually happened, all the challenges that come facing it, because it's not like you are ever taught to recognize it and then be able to tackle it. One of the most powerful examples is that we self-sabotage when it's something we fear. So for example, in my case, I was always terrified to quit my job because reality real that I can actually do the things that I've been wanting to do. I can make more content. I can start on YouTube. It took me a long time to get here because I had all these self-sabotaging thoughts in my head, like who's really going to watch these videos? Who's actually going to care what I put in front of my tripod right now? So many fears that were actually holding me back from trying new things. This book did a really, really good job understanding how to control it and recognize it so you can actually continue moving on in your personal growth journey. One of my all-time favorites, and you know him, you love him, you probably listen to his podcast, but Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. He talks so much about the wisdom in creating a more meaningful life, and he goes over so much about anxiety. He teaches you how to detach from materialistic things, to stop attaching your personality to certain traits. So one example he talked about that I just loved, especially it's something that I use with my clients, saying certain statements so then you start acting in alignment to it. So what do I mean by that? So easy to say that I can't ever be successful in my fitness journey because I'm a lazy person. In some cases it could be true. We all have our lazy days. We all deserve to have a lazy day where we just get to rot in bed, relax. But every time you say those certain statements to yourself, you don't realize that you start acting in alignment to all of that. I think what Jay Shetty does a really good job in his books is explaining his personal life and struggles that are actually relatable to a lot of us. Another one that I brought up in the previous example with a different book was the ability to say no to your parents, because as he had to drop his whole life because he wanted to be a monk, that was his personal choice. But imagine saying that to a parent when you're almost done with school, almost at the finish line to doing what you want to do, but suddenly you're like, I'm gonna move out of the country and go be a monk. Terrifying to have to change your plans. It takes a lot of bravery to do that. The anxiety around doing things that are no longer the norm. He goes into a lot of it, and I have to say that book really, really helped me when it came to anxiety, because he would say things of like, worried about this, but this could also happen. And it's a different style of thinking, and it felt mind-blowing, because what I didn't realize is our mind likes to take us to negative places because that's just our way of our brain keeping us safe. It takes the same amount of energy to think in those negative thoughts as it would be to talk to your mind and start going into the positive thoughts. So whenever you start saying things that like, I'm lazy, I can't really do this, you can start saying things in your head that are like, well, I had a lazy day, but that doesn't make me lazy. I know how to be productive. I know how to get things done. It's having the self-confidence to do that. Okay, this next book is more something that I think resonates with me, but it can also resonate with you if you are somebody who has never felt like you've ever fit in, whether it's your family or with a group of friends. If you've never been able to build meaningful connections with people, this book it will speak to you so hard, you might shed some tears. You will find your people. I've never read a book that had made me feel so seen in my life. For the longest time, I thought I struggled making friendships or making deep, meaningful connections because there was something wrong with me. It just turns out that I just never found my quote-unquote people. I've never found people who share the same values or interests or the same connections, and if I have, it has been very, very few people in my life. Helps you go over the ways to recognize when you start isolating yourself because if it's like social anxiety, or it just validates that you haven't found your people, and that's okay. It's such a small read. I literally finished it within a day. But this book will make you feel seen whenever you feel like you're just not making friends, whenever you feel like you're starting to get kind of lonely, or if you just feel like you'll never find your group of girlfriends. I think that was another thing I always felt like I was missing. I never had girlfriends that would just be down to go together and go to like trips, and I would actually enjoy it. I've ever been on one all girls trip. Let me say I did not enjoy it. We all had different interests. We did not have the same emotional maturity to want to do certain activities. It was always just about getting drunk and drinking, which okay is fine. I cannot do that, or I don't want to do that for 4 days straight while we're in a new place. I would like to explore. I want to try new things, but that is something of my interest. Finding people who had the same interest was really, really difficult to find. Okay, this next book is about challenging your limiting beliefs, to challenge and reframe negative thought patterns, which is like the foundations of building your confidence and embracing a more positive mindset. And that is 101 essays that will change the way you think. It is kind of a thick book. It took me a couple of days to get through it, but when I tell you the amount of life lessons that come out of each book, each essay literally does change the way you think. I don't know about you guys, but I like to highlight parts of books that just speak to me, and that's how I'm finding all of these little saved notes. One of the most powerful things is the little things that you don't realize are affecting how you feel about your body. One of them, there's 10 different ones, but one of them that just really spoke out to me was how you judge other people. What you first reach into insult someone with, especially when it's physical, says infinitely more of you than them. So let's say there was a girl who had really gorgeous hair. You see that, but right away you don't actually say that in your head wow, she has gorgeous hair. What comes to mind is God, how much product does she have to use in her hair to look like that? Or I could never because that's just so much work. Or how is she getting ready when we're just at a grocery store? It starts to become more judgmental thoughts instead of just the simple, I really like her hair, because you know that you can't ever get your hair to do that because it's just not curly enough or the curls fall out, whatever the case. What it means when you want to criticize somebody else. Also, it kind of goes into more healing, whether you've been betrayed by somebody, but the people who have hurt you most in life. One of my favorite excerpts from it was the people who were able to hurt you the most were also the people who you were able to love the most. We aren't profoundly affected by people who aren't already deeply within our hearts. For someone to have so much importance in your life is sacred, even when it goes askew. It's a gift to know somebody who is able to truly affect you, even if at first it didn't seem like it was for the best. Also, kind of like the other book, You Were Not Born to Suffer, it goes into how to take those negative experiences and make them positive into life learning lessons. Next book I finished actually reading by the pool because it was so small, but there are just little things that help me uplift my spirits and just be tiny reminders. The next book is Gentle Reminder. Just a whole bunch of little things of how to be gentle with ourselves even when we're going through the most difficult of times. The author uses so much solace and motivation that it almost makes you practice self-love immediately by how she writes certain things. So my favorite one that I have highlighted: when you feel like giving up, remember that your left lung is smaller than your right lung, simply to make room for your heart you hold within your chest. At your most primal level, your heart was favored. It took precedence. It will never be incapable of growing. It will never cease to hold up the whole world within it, so do not try and stop it. Remember that you use 200 million cells to take one step forward. Don't vilify yourself for the journey when you have walked this far. Literally every aspect of your body has given you the opportunity to be here right where you are. Just tiny little reminders that really make you change the way you think of relationship with your body, or feeling confidence, or needing to do the thing that you say you were going to do but never did. Like, this book is just what you need. Okay, this next book is more about if you're trying to get into the entrepreneur side, or if you have a small business, more around money mindset, and it was You Are a Badass at Making Money. Basically, it holds all the limiting beliefs of when it comes to money, your doubts and fears when it comes to making a lot of money. Like, let's be real, we always joke about, oh, if I won $1 million or if I earned it, do X, Y, and Z. But sometimes when it actually comes, money can sometimes make you feel really insecure depending how you grew up around money. Say, for example, you grew up in a really poor household and trying to come by money was really difficult. Watching your parents, they probably were just like trying to save. You may have even saw them not even eat a meal just so you could eat a meal. Depending how your parents might have talked about money, you might have grown up thinking the same thing. And now even when you've earned money, you think that, oh, I need to save it for a rainy day, and you just keep saving. You're terrified to invest it because it's not in your account, it's no longer usable. Basically goes over the mindset of what is successful to you, what is wealthy, and if you had that money right now, how would you handle it? One of the most powerful examples was Money Mindset, which emphasizes your belief in your worth and your potential. So let's say you are an entrepreneur and it's one of your slowest business seasons. It's so easy to think that, well, because since I didn't make the 80K that I wanted, it means I'm not doing enough. So the next month you try harder. It could be the opposite. It could be this month you made 10K, now the next month you're going to try and make 20K, and if that month after you don't make 30K, you start questioning your self-worth, that maybe I wasn't working hard enough. There's all these like things about money that I didn't think I had when it came to money mindset, but it turns out I do. One of my favorite examples is that she actually used the example that if you start think of money as a tool, you will never have fear of losing money. What this means is start looking at money as just a tool, because at the end of the day, if there was an apocalypse, natural disaster that just wiped out everything, no one is going to care about money in that moment. Saving people, trying to scavenge as much as you can. So when it comes to money, it is a tool that is always going to come and go. When you make those investments, it's going to come back in a different form, which is also a tool. I think after reading those type of things in this book, it helped me feel less scared to make investments in myself, in my business, and my overall like health and well-being. Okay, this last book is from the same author, but now it's not about money mindset. You Are a Badass. It is everything about self-confidence, identifying and overcoming any self-limiting beliefs and behaviors that stop you from getting what you want, whether it's your career, your dreams, just any self-doubt that you probably face every day. If you're somebody who struggles with like imposter syndrome, whether it's at work and you just feel like you're not good enough to take on the projects that you do, or you are somebody who wants to get out of the 9-to-5 space, start your own business, coaching services, like this would be the book to read before you start all that. Okay, I sometimes still read this book whenever I feel myself feeling low. I'm starting to question and doubt my capabilities of being a good coach, because yes, for someone who has been in the fitness space now for like 5 years, I still get those feelings of I don't think I know enough. Or if I especially meet another coach who has like 20 years coaching experience, then I start to feel doubt, like I don't actually think I know enough, or maybe I need to take more certifications in order to know what they know. At the end of the day, like it all comes down to life experience. So while I may not know somebody who's history for 20 years, I definitely know more than somebody who is just starting out at the gym. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters, because You just got to be a few steps ahead of ideal clients or whoever it is that you're trying to help. Okay, so these are just some of the books that have really helped me in my personal development, personal growth, healing, anxiety journey when it came to shifting mindset, building self-love, and overcoming certain challenges. If you haven't read any of these books and you feel like they resonated with you, consider this like a Yelp book review that you can now go and read yourself. If you have read some of these books, make sure you leave a comment. Let me know how you like the books. I would love to hear the feedback, exchange ideas. Or if you have read these books, let me know in the comments as well. If you have any other recommendations of books like this, please also leave it in the comments because I would love to know and read. That's it that I had for this video. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.